Hi everyone. Just give me one quick minute. Let me share my screen, and I want a confirmation from you all that you can see my screen or not. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's audible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Okay, let me start over. Okay, we don't have any PPT for the session, so don't worry about it because we are going to do a demo a lot, as well as we know going to take a hands-on experience than looking into the decks. But I have got all the documentation hyperlinks to share with you. Okay, myself Chandrayan Venkatesan. I'm a Powershell MVP, and I've been in IT industry for the past 16 years, where I've started my journey with SharePoint, and I worked as a service desk engineer, and I worked as an automation engineer, a data center engineer, and now I'm working as a cloud architect. So that's a short story about me. And at Chandra, this is my Twitter handle, and my YouTube channel is I Automate. You can just subscribe to it, or you can follow me on Twitter handle if you have any queries regarding the Azure or PowerShell or automation. I can help you out, and I'm very happy to connect with people and start looking into their scenarios and requirement to help out with them. So let's begin now. So in this session, like the topic says that we are going to look into the Azure reporting. Sorry guys, please be on mute if you're not talking. If you have any questions, please raise a hand. Don't distract me. Thank you. All right. I just want to start at this session with good news about the free ADX cluster announced by Microsoft. I'll just come to that part a bit later. Before that, I want to give a context of this session. We are not going to do kind of an automation. That means that we are not going to write a run books. We're not going to write PowerShell scripts. But yes, of course, I can help you out how to do that in the pipelines or how to make some scripts using the resource graph. Don't worry about that. Definitely, I'll show the demo on it. But we are not going to write kind of CI/CD pipelines, or we are not going to write a run books and deployment to do some queries and stuff. Instead, we are going to do everything using the resource graph queries, which is a subset of a Quisto query languages. Before all that, we need to start over from the Azure Resource Manager, because that's the backbone of whatever we do in the Azure Cloud. Say, for example, if you are going to work on Azure using a portal or using the PowerShell or Azure CLI or kind of an SDKs you used with your Python language or PowerShell or .NET frameworks or whatever it is, it's going to be through the REST API, right? And also, it is going to allow you to work on the Azure Resource Manager to do any kind of operations on the resources, be it a data store, web app, virtual machine, or service management. It all be under the Azure Resource Manager. So you have set of APIs to work with, and you can do the authentication authorization mechanism, can be a custom or can be AAD or can be of anything. If you build some kind of an applications, that is going to be supported. So when I say that I'm going to work with Azure Resource Manager, now our intention is to go ahead and do some kind of a reporting or some kind of pulling out retrieving the data and present it in a format what our line manager or business needs. I have seen people writing lots and lots of PowerShell scripts and then store the data in the Azure table storage, or they just go ahead and export to a CSV and send it in email attachment, or they run it in their local machine, they put it on the pipeline, and then they upload it in the blob. Yes, it's all good mechanism. I don't say anything wrong in it. It's all good until unless we just go ahead and start looking ourselves in the Azure Workbook, how we can go ahead and put the reporting there, and we can make some fancy glossy presentations. You can do some charts, CSV export and all other things. So I'm just going to show you how to start over with that. In the last session, we had a discussion like how do we start do the reporting, how we can send some data to our manager, or how do we find some resource which has no tags and all those stuffs. There are many ways to do that. You can do it using the CLI, as I said, you can do it using PowerShell or other stuff. Now I'm going to do it using the Azure Resource Graph. So if you once log into your Azure portal, if you have access to your Azure portal, you can follow up. That's not a problem, but you can just concentrate on this now. If you go log into the Azure portal, that's portal.azure.com, and you can see all resources, or else you can just go to the left pane. You can see the all resources over there. Once you log into the Azure portal, you just want to make sure you don't have any special filters here. So you need to make sure all the subscriptions are selected, because at times you may have 1 or 2 subscriptions selected. When you do a query, it's going to pull out resources only from that subscriptions. So make sure that you have no filters on the, you have applied all subscriptions filter. Then you have to just go to the all resources and you choose the open query, which you can see it in the ribbon here. I don't want to confuse you now. I'm just removing this query. In the left side, what you see here is the tables. Consider this as a table. So this will help you out to retrieve the information from your Azure subscriptions, be it n number of subscriptions. Wherever you have got a reader permission, you will get the resources from here. So now I need to understand what is running in my subscriptions or in my tenant. If you have like 20 subscriptions, you have a reader permission on all 20, you will get a results for all 20. In my case, I've got only one subscription. So I just want to type in resources. So this IntelliSense is going to help me out to pull out which table I'm looking out for. I can go for resource changes, resource containers, or resources. Don't worry about what exactly that does. I just want to open up a resources. That means I need to understand how many resources are available in my Azure subscriptions or in the tenant. And I'd want to make sure I get this as a CSV report, right? I'm not writing up a PowerShell query here or a .NET Python or something using SDK, REST API, nothing. I'm just using a resource graph query and just say project ID, comma, name, comma, resource group. How do I know what are the properties I'm going to pull out here? The IntelliSense will keep, but you don't need to worry about it. You can go to the left pane. You see the resources table here. Just expand it. You see all the columns underneath it. This is by the resource type you get it. Say, for example, if you're looking out for what do you call it, a SQL instances. So you will see what you get in the SQL instances. But this is more friendlier than that, where I can just go ahead and say project. And I say, I want to know the ID of the resource. That's a unique ID. What is the name of the resource? And I want to know the subscription ID. Then I want to know the resource group, right? So now I just click on run query. Before that, what I do is I'll just minimize it so that I can get the full view. So without a disturbance, I can run. So when I run the query, you see the result here, which is a formatted result. If I export this to a CSV or as a download to a CSV, I get some kind of a report, right, which is not of much of useful for me. So I can go ahead and disable this, saying formatted results off, so that I can get in a readable format. So you see this as a readable format. So I got the ID, name of the resource, subscription ID, and resource group in fraction of a second. Be it any number of records, it's not going to take more than a minute, because I've tried this with a tenant which has got 1900 subscriptions. The script, whatever I'm running on that tenant particular environment of one of my client, I've never executed any kind of a script or a resource graph query more than 5 minutes, not even more than 2 minutes to be precise. All right. So once I just did the project, I can see details hyperlink. If I click on this, I used to get whatever the property I have selected. That's nothing but ID, name, subscription ID, and resource group. But I want to know some more information about it, but I don't know what properties resides in resources, right? So I just simply remove this pipeline and run this query in resources. So what happens now? It pulls out all the columns underneath it, which is nothing but I call it as property. We'll consider that as a columns. Okay. So now I click on see details. So now I get the type. I get the tenant ID information, location, resource group, managed by whatever it is, and I get some properties of the resources. This is really good. So what I can do is now I just go ahead and say I want to pull out information about the disks. I want to know some information on the disks, right? So what I can do is I can just go ahead and say some conditions I can put, saying where type. So when I key in the letters, the IntelliSense helps me out to choose what I'm trying to get in. So I just say type equals. So what does this mean is if I do double equals, it is case sensitive. it will exactly look for what I have put it in the right side. If I do a tilde sign here, it is case sensitive. It will look for Microsoft.compute.disks no matter whether the C is in uppercase or in lowercase. I have observed an issue at one of my client place where I try to execute it with equals and compute in uppercase, but in the backend at times Microsoft may change that and we don't get the proper result. So this is not good to use because performance wise this operator will pull out the optimization, but that's okay because we need to have a record precise. So nothing wrong using it, but Microsoft says that better use equals and then make the case sensitive. But I don't worry about it because I want data, my report to be precise. So if I go and run this particular query, what happens? I get the results only about the disks. So you can see the disks type. So how much I've got some information here about the disks, right? So I'll just make some kind of a decoration so that I can make it in the readable format for the report. So what I do is I'll try to project is nothing but a select, okay? Project ID, name, resource group, subscription ID, location, and what else I can do. Let me see what other interesting properties I get. So provisioning state, disk size, it's something interesting. So I can just go ahead and pull out this and say, how do I get that is, I'll say disk size in GB equals to string. I'll tell you why I'm using this function to string. That means I'm trying to get whatever the data I get it from the JSON. All right, I'm making that as a string so that I don't get some sort of an hyperlink. So it makes me a report in a readable format. I'll show you that now quickly. So now I know it is in the properties, right? Properties dot disk size dot GB. Don't worry when you get a red squiggy error. That's okay. It's accepted because I have some trouble in this IntelliSense. When I run this query, you will not see any error. You see the disk size in GB. Right? So I've got some information. So what should I do now is I need to confirm whether this is the right information. So let me go to this particular disk and let me quickly go ahead and do this duplication of this tab. And search for this resource. So I'll tell you one thing. When I'm searching in the top search bar, how this is pulling out this report? Under the hood, it's pulling out from the resource graph. So the portal is doing that. So when I go here, what should I see? The disk size is 20 gigabytes. So the data what I'm getting is correct. Obviously, I'll get the right data. There's no problem in it. So similarly, I just do one more thing is like properties. When I do this, what happens is it gets the result. I don't have any trouble in it. So you can see the duration, which took almost like 522 microseconds, not more than that. If you have more data also, you can just check it. You will not see any performance issue in it. So I'm downloading this data now. Let me go to D drive and store everything here. So that so when I open up this CSV file, let's see how this data looks like. Yeah, this is an ID of the resource, which you see like disks and the name of the disk, computer provider and everything. When you have records more than some numbers, like more than 1,000 or 100, you have to project ID. You can't ignore ID and export the data. You will not get the right numbers. That's by design. You have to make sure that ID is projected, and that's how you are going to get the data. If you get in any case you are working on an environment which has got more than 1,000 subscriptions, the pagination completely differs. I'll show you how to solve that problem also using PowerShell, but you can't do that in the Azure portal because pagination is not going to work in the way how PowerShell is going to do, because we need to apply some logic over there. But the resource graph is meant for applying advanced filtering and grouping so that you get the records, the precise records. So it helps you to get the data in a linear, precise and concise way. So now that I have got some records here, right? So I've got very less in running in my environment, so I don't have pagination issues and stuff. I've got some 12 records here. sorry, 11 records, including the header. The properties doesn't look good because it's a JSON format, right? So it has got data which looks very clumsy. So I need to make sure I get some kind of a presentable way, giving the disk size bytes or whatever it is. So I showed you how to pull that information, like in disks thing. You can just access it using the properties. So you can just say properties dot create date creation data dot create option. So you get it from image or from disks, whatever it is. And also you can choose the OS type and stuff. Now, let me just go ahead and show you a documentation on Microsoft so that will be easy for you to understand. So that's the practical thing. So if I go to the starter resource graph query samples, we don't need to worry a lot. Whatever we think of to run in our environment, Microsoft has given us samples that you can just do some kind of a modification that can help you out. So you have got a lot of samples here, like count of Azure resources. Just imagine we do something like get -az resource, right? I just pushed enter. It takes some time to pull out this information. Let's see how long it takes. All right, so it's still pulling out the information. Now, let me show you this. Yeah, I do this. The keyboard typing, I have got a mechanical keyboard. That's how I work. So now I do the get AZ resource, which is going to take some time to pull out the information. I'll just show you how quick you can pull out the report using the resource graph. Now I got some information. I'm not exporting it. I'm just going to show you how much records I've got here. Measure object. So this measure object command with the pipeline helped me out to get the count of resources. So I've got 141, some odd numbers. So I can do the same here using a summarize and say count of by ID, right? If I run a query, so I'm going to get the result, which is 141 in numbers, which took just 591 microseconds, right? So how do I help out exporting this data and give it to my boss? You can come to the portal, you can export it. But when it comes to the automation, sit back, relax. I'll just show you quickly. Before that, I just want to show you how much time that Powershell has taken to pull out this information. So I'll just say measure command. So expression, I'm going to use the same command get AZ resource. So if you see, the measure command is a Microsoft utility commandlet, which helps me out to understand how long the command takes for the execution, right? So when I do this, it took 786 milliseconds. How it took 786 milliseconds? Because I've got the context established already. But when I automate it, every time I get a new PowerShell instance running, it will take some time to pull out that information. And this get AZ resource is going to pull out the information only from the given subscription context. If you want to pull out the resource information from the different subscription, you need to set the context using the set AZ context, right? Something like that. It's been a long time that I'm using AZ module. Yes. So you just want to do this subscription and then you run the get AZ resource, you get a set of information for that particular subscription. If you have, consider if you have 10 subscriptions, you need to loop through, set a context and get it. Each subscription will get 786. Wherein in this, you will get like hardly you may get another 591 milliseconds if you have one more subscriptions, but you don't need to loop through. You don't need to set a context because it is going to do one single call and pull out the information. Okay, so that's the beauty of it. Now, how this resource table is getting the information, we need to know about that, right? It's pretty simple. The Azure Resource Manager, I was explaining it, right? So there is a job that runs in a regular interval and pulls out all the information about the resources. It can be resource change. Resource change in the sense it can be resource creation, updation, deletion, whatever it is. Those changes are also captured. And every 15 minutes, it just goes and update the resource details because you may change the name of the VM or you may change the disk. You may take some activities, right? So all these information are running as a job, and then every 15 minutes for an instance, it just goes and update this table. So you will be getting near real-time data whenever you're pulling the information from here. All right. So what am I supposed to do with this? When I want to pull the report every time and I want to give the report to my boss, who asks me every 10 minutes, like what is the count of VMs, count of something, whenever he goes to the meeting and he wants to put it on the PPT. So what I did is I said, like, you don't get back to service desk, you don't call operations team when they are busy doing something. We will give you an access to a workbook where you can go pull out the information what you want. So we got the requirement for the reporting, and then we made one simple workbook. I'll show you how to do that. This is just a scenario, but in my workplace I've done this. So I'm just opening up a workbook. I'm creating a new workbook now. Okay, Azure Workbook is nothing but another service which gives you some canvas features and stuff which you can play around and you can beautify your data and show it. I'm going to create, see, a workbook. Microsoft also gives some inbuilt templates. You can just look into that. You can give the availability of the applications, key metrics of the app insights and stuff, performance counters. Those queries are inbuilt. You can just quickly go to that and make use of it. Instead of you are pulling out the VM metrics for individual, you can put it in one single workbook. Before that, I just show you the starting point, how to build this. So now that I've got a Azure workbook, if you're not here, just be on the Azure portal home and search here for the workbook. You will see Azure workbooks. Okay, and you can just click on that. If you have any workbooks created, you will be seeing it. So I think I've created some workbook before. Let me see how that looks. All right. Doesn't look good, but that's okay. So let me create a new workbook now. And I just go click on empty workbook. So I'll not have any kind of a skeleton templates associated to it. So this is a canvas area for me. Okay, so I've got a couple of icons here, which is self-explanatory, is to just say save all, done editing. And then I just go ahead and say, you have to send this to someone, refresh it, share this workbook with someone. If you are not comfortable using the user interface, you can just quickly go get some ARM template or a gallery template, and then you can pull it here. So if you have an ARM template, somebody has built it, you can give it, or else you can copy this, export it, and give it to someone else who can make use of it. In a couple of minutes, I'll show you how I'm going to use a gallery template done by Billy York, who's very good at doing this workbook. The credit goes to him. I'll show his workbook, what he has done. So I'm just coming to the monitor, workbook, create workbook, empty. Now I'm going to do some kind of a work. So I'm just going to create a query here. I just put a query. Now my intention is just to pull out the resource information. They want to take the inventory of the resources. From the workbook, you have an option to select the data source. Your data source can be resource graph, resource manager, data explorer. You can pull it from JSON. You can have a custom endpoint. This is my favorite. The reason being is, if you don't get data from any of this data source, you can build your API using function app and you can consume that here and you can get the data. I will definitely show that. Before that, I'll just show the resource graph. So now that I'm in Azure Resource Graph is my data source. And I'm selecting the subscriptions. Always do use all subscription, because once this is done, your company may onboard a new subscription. Every time you can't go ahead and select it, right? You just keep it, use all subscriptions, or just put load all, use all subscriptions, leave it as it is. And visualization, I'll just say set by query. I don't need to change anything here. I type it resource. So here also IntelliSense works. So I'm happy. I don't need to type it fully. I just choose resources. And here I just say project ID, comma, name, comma, resource group, subscription ID, and what else I can do. Okay. For now, this is okay. Type, resource type. I just click on run query. So what happens? It pulls out the information. What is the difference you see in the workbook and in the resource graph query? You see this beautiful icons here. I don't want to tell to somebody who's a layman what is this kind of resource type is. Looking at this, he can understand this is a disk and this is a VM. That's the beauty of this workbook actually. I really like this feature. So now, what is the advantage of it? I just go ahead and click on advanced settings. I say all resources and click this option which says show export to Excel button when not editing. And also I want to limit this to 10. I may have 10,000 records, but I just want to show 10 in my workbook. When you export, you get all the records. Okay. I click on done editing. And here I click on done editing. So what I see here is an export to Excel icon. Doesn't look good, right? How many can understand that this is a resource information? Let me put some kind of helpful text here. I just go here and say add text. What is new in this? This supports the markdown language, sorry. So I'll just say all Azure resources. I'll say just info. So that means I'll get some glossy icon. I made a hash here. That means a header 1 in HTML. So it will be like a bit bold. So I just make it header 2 now. And I move this to the top. And then I just click on done editing. I move on top. Now you see all Azure resources is listed here. What does this mean? I'll give this link to my boss and say that whenever you need a Excel report, you just take it out from here. So he clicks on down arrowhead here and he can export the data as Excel and he can open this. He or she can open this. You're going to get a new set of records. Right. Now, what they do, they just go to the insert, they can do the pivot table from the table range. And what they do here is, okay, I'm a bit bad in Excel, but just bear with me for a minute. Delete this one. I'll just go insert, I'll do a pivot table. It's good. Now I just say resource type filters and then I put it on the rows and just put it on the values. So now manager can say that there are 11 count of disks available in their Azure environment. They've got 7 virtual machines and it has got 7 extensions. It has got only 1 virtual machine scale set. Why they want to do this also? Well, let's try to minimize this work. What we can do is we can just go say like, are you looking out at data which gives location wise information? So I just clicked on edit and you need to make sure scroll down below the working area, the palette, what you see here. There is an edit icon. You need to click on edit. If I click on this particular edit icon, you're going to edit the text box because I have added one text query. Right? So here I'm going to have a query box. So I'm just clicking on edit. Now I just go to settings. He was looking at some kind of a summarized report, summarize count. You have to just put this parenthesis by location and I click run. So I get the information, right? Location wise, I'd see this information, North Europe, East US, West US, whatever the locations I've got. Now let me go ahead and just do some visualization on this. Let me put this as a pie chart. Let me put it as a pie chart. Right, I've got the chart here. So I don't need to put some effort on the Excel sheet every time and send it across. I can give this a hyperlink. They can make use of this. This is just only for the resource by location. There are a lot of information which we need to pull out, right? How many endpoints are there, or how many resources by location, what is the compute is doing, how many VMs are up and running, location wise, size wise, lot of queries are there. We don't need to write anything by ourselves because Microsoft has given a lot of other options in this particular document link. I'll just put this in my doc. I will send this particular Word document. It has all the links, whatever you want to know about the resource graph query. Okay, so this is pretty helpful and handy for us, right? So we know like how to pull out this information and get this report and stuff. Now, this report is helpful. People are happy with this. I need to give this to community, or I just want to give it to someone, some other team member who runs, who owns his own subscription or her own subscription. In that case, you can just click on this code icon, advanced editor icon, and you see gallery template and a ARM template. So I just choose a gallery template here. I copy this. I'll go to the Azure workbook. I didn't save this workbook, okay? But I don't worry about it because I've copied the gallery template. Consider that you are getting a gallery template from the GitHub or a ARM template, whatever it is. You just want to go click on create here, empty one. Don't click on anything over canvas here now. Just click on the advanced editor, remove this, put it back on, and click on apply. You will get the visualization. I've got the visualization, that's why I'm seeing it, or else you get the result back, whatever the query you have written. So there is a lot of other things which we can make use of the workbook. Let me move on to the next topic. For now, I'll just close this workbook and then create a new one. And I just go to add parameters. So this is another key information. Consider you have got 20 plus subscriptions, for instance, and you have reader permission on 20 plus subscription, but you own only 5 subscriptions out of it, where you are accountable for that. So every time you can't go ahead and change that, right? So you can just parameterize it and say that I am looking out a parameter here. The parameter name is going to be subscription. What is, sorry, any question? All right, sorry guys. Now I've got the parameter blade. I'm creating a new parameter. How does this parameter is going to work? I'll show you. You can give any display name, but stick to the name what you're giving for the parameter name so that you can identify it easily. The parameter type can be text. It can be of anything, right? But Microsoft knows what administrator is looking out for. I want to pick the subscription. So they have given a type called subscription picker. So I can choose the subscription picker and I'd say that I need the subscription picker. This is my required one. All right. So then I can just go and say some explanation. If I want to give, I can do that. Default, get data from all subscriptions. So now you can see here, I've got only one subscriptions in my environment. So I see that if I have more than one, you can see that list of subscriptions underneath this drop down. So now I just click on save and I just say done editing. You see the subscription is unset. I can go ahead and choose this subscription. Now you don't see that red exclamatory mark. That's really good, right? So now I can just go to the add query. Now I just say like resources. It should be resource, right? Really strange. I don't understand why. Oh, okay. Now I'm on the data sources log. That's why I see resource. If I choose resource graph, then it should be resources. Right. I just leave it as it is. Now I come to the subscription. You see here resource parameters and just choose subscription. I've got only one, so obviously the result is going to be the same. There is no change in the result, right? But my resource graph, sorry, resource group is different, right? So let's see how that works. I'll just go ahead and click on edit and I add one more parameter called resource group and choose the parameter type as resource group picker is not there. Resource type picker is there. Okay, that's okay. Let me see resource type. Okay, I've got resource type. I'll make this as required and resource type as whatever it is. I'll leave it as it is. Availability set, save it. And then I come back here. I choose something like it gives all the resource types available. It doesn't look what resource type I've already provisioned in my environment. So I'll just choose something like this. I click on done editing, run query. I don't know. So this should work as expected. So if I choose the resource type and say where type equals type, right? So that you can filter out in such a way. Okay, I don't know whether it takes up this way, but there is a way for doing it. I have got that query. I'll show you that. If I'm doing something wrong here, that's okay. Okay, I'm making some mistake here in this operations. Either I have to give double arrowhead or something like that. No, that's okay. I'll show you that how to filter that and give it up. Apart from this, they have got a couple of other features in the workbook as well as in the resource graph. Before that, I just want to tell you about the data explorer. I know that not everybody can go and practice it because they may be new to Azure. Sorry, they may be new to Azure, or they don't have a reader permission on the subscriptions, or they want to understand how the subset of resource graph query works. Actually, resource graph query is a subset of Quisto query language, KQL. If you want to learn KQL and you want to understand that, and you need an environment to do it, Microsoft has came up with an option. Sorry guys, please be on mute.
11th to 20th March. Get 50 to 90% off shop now.
Okay, can you hear me loud and clear now? Okay, I don't have any distractions now. So what you can do is you can go to this particular link, FreeDX cluster. So on 7th of March this year 2022, Microsoft has announced about a free Azure Data Explorer cluster. People over here would have got good experience on using Data Explorer. For the beginners, this is really a super gift from Microsoft. You can create your free cluster. You don't need to have a credit card. You don't need to use your credit card. I mean to say, you don't need to have an Azure subscription. They gave a web UA for us. You can just go to this particular link. I'll just give it to you in the chat right away. You can try to access it. I don't see the chat window. Why? That's strange. Why don't I see that? Okay, no problem. I will share it to
Kasam. In the chat as well. I mean, like some discussion. You can't see that as well.
I don't know. I don't know what is the reason for that. Teams is a bit weird. Kasam, can you help me out to read the chats? I don't see the chat window. But not now. That's okay. Let me move on. I don't want to distract all.
Yeah, let me check.
Sure, thanks, Kasam. So here you see that my cluster, right? So this is a Custo free. You can see the hyperlink aka.ms Custo free. That's your my cluster. dataexplorer.azure.com/free cluster. And you can log in with your O365 ID if you have Azure Active Directory. I mean to say, sorry, not O365, Azure Active Directory, or you can use your Microsoft Live Sign-in ID. Once you are done here, you can just go ahead and start creating your own cluster. I have already created a cluster called iAutomate. Okay, here I can create some database and stuff. So I'll just show you what kind of filters I have applied here, right? Using the Quisto queries. If you look into this monitoring group and all other queries, whatever I showed you, where, select, project, all these things I've picked it up from the Quisto query here. So that's how it works. I have taken one particular some e4excel.com where I see some millions, trillions of records for the example. Why I want to show this to you is this is how the performance is. So you need to consider using the resource graph query when you're doing the Azure inventory. Either you put it on the workbook, or you put it on your function app and run it as a script, or you put it on your pipeline and put it on the blob, whatever the scenario is, consider using the resource graph query. But you need to make sure the resource graph query will have information only about the existing resources. If the resource is deleted, it won't capture that. It won't hold that information. You can't expect that to have a 90 days of records. No, it won't have it. Okay, just make sure of it. Now I'm coming to the cluster Azure Data Explorer. I'll show you how the performance is here. Let me. I've got some 5 million records of credit card information, which is like a hypothetical credit card information. Here I've got a IntelliSense. So I can just choose here and say limit 10 and click on run. So out of 5 million records, it picked up 10 records filtered, which took only 1 second. That's really great, right? It has a lot of information in it. You have to trust me, like I can't even open that record in my local machine. Let me show you that. I think I have it here. No, yeah. This is the 5 million cc records.csv, which I downloaded from this particular link, the 5 million cc records. Right? If I try to open this, the Excel throws an error saying that the number of columns is exceeding. So it takes some time, it's still loading in the bottom. All right, the data set is too large for the Excel grid. It's okay, but I don't worry about it. I'm just pulling out this information. Now I need to know some useful data out of this. So this is very, very helpful to explore your data. And I think maximum of 5 TB of data you can store here to work because it's free of cost. And you can learn Azure, the Quisto query language and the Data Explorer along with that. And also you can learn the subset of how to use the KQL in your Azure Resource Graph. Please make a note, whatever you use it in KQL won't work in Azure Resource Graph as it is, because Resource Graph query is nothing but a subset of Quisto query language. I'll give you the hyperlink to learn Quisto query language also. You will come to know about comparison operator, filtering, groupings, and all other stuff. So consider this is the resource of Azure resources. I need to just group some information and get the data. I want to know how many banks are issuing credit card in a given region. I don't know what region it is. I'm just pulling out. Consider looking at this. I think this is in the United States, but that's okay. I just want to group it by issuing bank. So I just say summarize count by issuing bank. So when there is a space in the column, it will automatically make it in the single quotes inside the square bracket. But square bracket is not necessary, but it comes up. So it's not mandatory. That's okay. So if I click on run, it took 1 second and 334 milliseconds to pull out this summarized report of 5 million records, 5 million rows. That's really awesome. I don't think you need a better solution to do the Azure reporting than the resource graph query, right? This is not resource graph query, but still more or less it works the same way. So similarly, you can also do a lot of other activities. I've got different tables here, like credit card and then the information table. Say like I choose employee and then information. If you don't select the database, the table won't appear here. So that you have to make sure. So if I click on credit card and then I just click on information, I don't get it. I want to click on employee and then I have to click on information, IN, I get that. So I just say summarize count by email. So I can come to know. Yeah, email is going to be unique, so I'll get every record. So I get 50 records, something like that. So similar logic is what you are going to apply it here in your workbook. So there is another service here, which is nothing but Azure Monitor. So go to the pane and click on monitor. In the monitor also you can access the workbooks. And you can just go to the click workbook and then start working on this particular thing. Another great feature about the workbook is you can beautify the data with the tabs. So that's a really awesome feature. Say for example, I give this text before link as the style as tabs, and I call this as all resources, just for example. And then I say set a parameter value. A value is tab view. Just give some settings for this. Tab view, or and then say resource by type. And then again, I choose set a parameter value. The value is like tab view. I just keep this as a tab view. What setting is this? Actually, I don't need this value, but that's okay. Let me just keep it as it is. Then I just say done editing. You see here, I got a tab. So I can have n number of tabs and show information accordingly. So I go to the add query and say like, you can also pull out the log information here. I'm just pulling out only resources information. You still have some time, not a problem. So I just pull out resources information. I choose all subscription. It's going to pull out all the information. Now I need to go to advanced. Here there is an option, make this item conditionally visible. I'm going to add a condition. What is the parameter name I've got? Tab view equals parameter value, something like tab view. Okay, all resources equals tab view. And then I just say done editing. So get this tab. I think I messed up within the variable values here. I got this information, something I need to change it here. So this is how exactly you can work it up. This is just the logic. Now I'll just show you one workbook which is done by Billy York. That is going to be a super awesome thing. Whatever I showed you in the bits and pieces, he has consolidated everything. He has put a lot of effort on it to help the community. I'll show you that. I just go and open up this advanced editor. I have taken that query already. I'll give you the template, the Azure inventory. I'm selecting this, pull it over here and click on apply. It takes a minute to pull out all the information. And then you see all this beautiful workbook, which is sufficient to do the due diligence of what is running in your Azure environment. So he has taken multiple, he has done multiple versions, has done this. Okay, now let me show you this way. So this is how it looks. When I executed it, it showed me 141 resources. That's an overview. What he is showing, how many subscriptions I've got. See that beautiful icon of the subscription and how many resource groups I've got. 17 resource groups. So I can just go to my Chrome and click on resource groups. You see here, I've got 17 records, 17 resource groups. So I've got the record correct. And it says resource count by type. So whatever the filter I'm writing, by type, by count, by location, by size, he has done it everything and he has applied the tiles and other stuff. How do we do it in a customization? You can just go ahead and modify this by yourself, or you can start building out one like this. Let me build one more workbook for you for a demo. Go to the all resources and click on open query. Oh, sorry about that. I'm a bit confused. I need to go to the Azure Workbook. Right? I go to the Azure Workbook. I click on create and I choose the empty workbook and I go to the query. I choose resource graph, resources, summarize. Okay. Summarize count by location, and I run a query. I get a location wise records. Why I don't see a record here? Because I didn't select the subscription. I need to choose use all subscriptions. Now it should give me the record. So I've got some information. I go to the visualization. I can choose tiles. So that is going to show me this sort of information. This is pretty much useful. That's what exactly he did it here, resource count by type. So how do I achieve that? I go to this query, summarize count by type, and I run the query. So I get resource type information. This is by resource type. What he has done is resource count by type. He has done a good job by consolidating all the resource types into one and made a count of it. I've got 8 app services that includes function app, web services, whatever it is. I've got 7 storage accounts. I've got service bills. How do I go ahead and check that out? I can just quickly go to the home page, go to the all resources, and I filter by type and say storage. I click storage account. By the time I selected storage, I see the count is 7. So I got 7 records. I've got 7 records here. So it's a near real time. If in case you deleted one of the storage account and this page, you have to refresh it. Another key feature here is you can go to refresh and enable in what interval you need to refresh it, because you can't tell your line manager to keep refreshing it, right? Your line manager, your boss can just go and export the data without refreshing it. So he's going to get a subset of it, old set of data. If you keep this to 5 minutes, you can tell it's a near real time. If any resources created between this 5 minutes, it won't appear in the report. But that's good. Nobody's going to do the real time monitoring because if in case they want, even a Datadog or other observability tools can't give that, because that's the transition lifecycle of the resource creation. So this is just the overview of this particular workbook. So similarly, when I go to the compute, I can see VM related information. How many VM is deallocated, how many VM is running, and what is the count of the VM by size. This is the size of the VMs I have opted. DS1, V2, 4, DS2, all this is good. This is for the visualization. If you want to do for a reporting as a CSV, I showed you how you do that, right? And similarly, he has made some hybrid compute. In my case, I don't have a hybrid compute. It's okay. I can go to the pass. Good. I've got 3 logic apps. So it understood I've got a pass running and it gave me another good information here. In this particular subscription, you have got 3 pass services running. And this is the information. I can go to the view details and get on to this other parameter values. I don't need to navigate from one blade to other blade, open multiple windows to see what is there, who has done it, what is the tag, who is managing it, all other information. Yes, of course, it has got the export option. So you can just click on export and you get that exported data. That's good. Similarly, you can go to the application resources. So I've got 1 app service plan and 1 Azure functions running. That's okay. It looks like a web services icon, but that's Azure functions. You can see it in the type. And it gives the counts here. That's really good. Do I have any containers? I have 1 AKS running. That's a resource containers, which you can access it from the resource containers table. I've got some data. What data it is? Count of all resource types, no resources found, it's all good. And he also looked out for the storage and the backup. So what is the key vaults I've got? This information. I think this is more than enough for us to understand. But what is the query behind it? If you have provisioned a Windows virtual desktop, you can see that records here. How many host pool you have got, how many VMs, AVD it's running. It's not a Windows virtual desktop. It should be Azure virtual desktop. It has been rebranded. So you can also look out how many VMs are powered off, how many AVD is running, how many user sessions are there. All those information you can put it over here and you can make use of it. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. You don't need to put some more effort building out you take a report, dump it to a table and ask Power BI analyst to look into the data. Yes, of course, you can do that when you have a multi-cloud environment where your Power BI analyst is going to do some data collecting from AWS, Google Cloud, on-prem, Azure, and then consolidate and put it on Datadog or Power BI, whatever, wherever it is in that case. But if you're running only on Azure, you can make use of this. But my advice is please don't use the REST API, custom API, just to make sure that I pull out the data from AWS and try to plot it. See, what I mean is, you go to this particular workbook. Let me open up the workbook again. Azure workbooks. I create one more. I create an empty one. And I add a query. Say custom endpoint. Here I can hit in some URL, right? Any open API, I can access it. Say, for example, Is there any open API we have handy? Open API. Whether can I access some open API, free weather APIs? Okay, I don't have any API link. I've seen a couple of things, random codes API. Okay, so something like this, if you hit the API with the ID, you get the result back. You can give that URL here. If you have a URL parameter, you can provide it here. If you have a headers for the authentication, pass it over here. And then once you run it, you get the result back. Don't ever try to pull out the information from AWS or Google Cloud, since they provided the API for the data where you can plot it here, because it's going to be heavily memory consuming. When you open this workbook, it takes long time. It enables the authentication in the backend and then pull the data. Leave it as it is for the Azure. If it is a minimalistic REST APIs, you can make use of it. That's my recommendation, but not a Microsoft recommendation. You can also consult with your architect or with Microsoft support team if you can do that for the heavy loaded APIs, and you can make use of that in the visualization. You can include that. There is possibility to do that, so I don't stop that, but my recommendation is that. So apart from this, what else I can do? You see that Azure Data Explorer, which I was showing here, this is my web UI. So this is apart from the Azure tenant, Azure subscription, where what I'm using. If you have any Azure Data Explorer where you have some data table clusters and other things created, you can access that. For what I'm using Azure Data Explorer, I'll give you one scenario at my workplace. I need to capture all the resource information, tags information, and team can go ahead and access it. They can filter it by 90 days and then see what other business lines are performing and how they are performing, what type of resource they are doing. They do some analytical drill down with that data. I don't worry about it, but I just want to make sure I send the data to the Azure Data Explorer. So I made a script which just goes and dump the data into the Azure Data Explorer, and I don't need to rewrite a query, right, to visualize it. I can just export that Data Explorer from here, point to that data source, and I can query it like how I'm doing it here. In my case, I don't have that. That's why I couldn't show you, sorry. So I can just run something like this. Information limit 10, something like this. I can run it over there and I get the information. Why I want to store the data in Azure Data Explorer when Resource Graph itself is going to provide me the data, right? When I want to pull out the information, which is 90 days or what happened in the last year when I want to do the trend, but you have deleted the data, resources, right? In that case, Resource Graph will not hold that information. You need to get that information from the data store somewhere, which you have kept it. It can be in your blob, it can be somewhere else. But I have kept it in Data Explorer because I have got the data which you can't imagine, because I'm running behind 2000 subscriptions. I cannot write a REST API to pull out that information and store it in the data and retrieve it back. So Resource Graph is the way to go for me to pull out that in one call, one single call, and do it. Why do I reiterate it and put a stress load on one single call? Let me quickly go to the PowerShell and show you what I have done for that. Let me close this. Hope you can see my screen, right? You have any issues, let me know. I can change the colors of the theme. All right, I'll consider that you can see the screen properly. Okay, now here comes the PowerShell script. I'm hitting up the REST API URL. Don't get confused or don't think that this code is of huge. I'll just explain you line by line. This is how you do the automation. If in case you want to dump the data somewhere, or you want to send a report as an email attachment or whatever it is. First thing, I need to have a token, right? So get-az access token is going to help me out to get the bearer token. Let me try to run this code line by line so that it will be easy for beginners. So I run this token. what happens is I get a bearer token. So I'm getting that bearer token here. I'm formatting that as a header. So this is one of the parameters which I need to pass for my API call. So if I do a headers, I get a hash table name value pair. So a key value pair, sorry. So I've got the authorization and the bearer token. I need to pass bearer space token. That is what I did it in the format bearer space placeholder and passing the token value, which I'm getting it from this particular variable. This is my API URL, Microsoft.Resource Graph Resources API version. When I hit this particular URL, okay, and I can pass the query parameter. So this is my query, resources, project ID, name, subscription ID, and resource group, which helps me out to pull out that information. So I've got the results empty array collection so that I can play around here. I've got one more collections array list so that I can store the number of records. Why I am taking this approach is the pagination. When you do the commandlet like search az graph, right? So if you do this like with help examples, this is not really that friendly enough to help you out in the pagination. When your subscription limits cross more than 1,000, if you have 1,001 subscription, it will take only the top 1,000 subscription. So I need to explicitly mention the subscription IDs here. This is an array collection of subscription IDs, and I'm passing the query in the body parameter. So when I run this, what happens? I'll show you what will be my body is. The body for the API URL. After this, I'll take a break for 5 minutes so that I can answer the question and move on to the next topic and close it off. All right, so now it is running. Ignore the warning, that's okay. Now I've got the body value. So you see here, I've got a JSON structure here. Subscription, that's my subscription ID. Query, that's my query. Options, skip token, null. Because when I am running this particular resource query, it doesn't know that it has a skip token. Skip token is nothing but the next set of data. You will get only the top 100 records whenever you query. Top 100 or top 1,000, something like that, right? Say, for example, you say like select 1,000, top 10, top 5. So by default, you get 100 set of records. So in order to get more than that, you need to make sure first 1,000, second or a skip 1,000, something like that. But using the first skip parameter, I think I'm giving it more of theory. Let me show it practically. So I use a native commandlet search -az graph and I say query. I'll call it as resources project ID comma name. That works. That gives me the ID. Okay, let me put it like this way. I don't have any data much. I'll just give name comma location. So I've got all the resources, all 141 resources with the location information, right? But I can also do like this first 5, which is equivalent of doing take 5, right? But when I want to do the pagination, so Microsoft documentation recommends that go ahead and pick up the count and then loop through it and do it. No, that's not the way of doing it. But I don't say that Microsoft is wrong, but I've got something like more optimal way than that using the REST API method. So I am not looping it here. Instead, I'm just using a do until the skip token comes as null. So if I get any URL, what happens? It just goes and put the skip token here, and then it will get some more data. It goes to the next set of data. That's what this code exactly does. So if I go ahead and run this particular data, I will select object name comma location for the readability, and I run this. It just goes and selects some data and then come back. You run it for a lot of okay, why I don't get a location? Because I didn't select the location here. All right, so it works in the way we want. So you can export this to a CSV and send it to a blob. You write a piece of code or anything. So this is the piece of code which will help you out to do the pagination easily. So where the skip token applies is when I invoke a REST method, I'm passing to this particular URL and passing the body parameter with the subscription. All the subscriptions you have 1,500, 1,800, 1,000, 2,000 subscriptions, it will be a comma separated. And then it runs a query against all the subscriptions in one call. And then it comes to the skip token, it looks null. So it will pass that body here and then get some data object back, add it to the collections, to the array list in the line number 8. Collections will add it over here. And then if the results has got a skip token, which is not null, it will put it to the skip token and then it will pass the value here. And in the next run, again, it will go ahead and pull the object of next 100 records. It will repeat it until the skip token comes null and then pulls out all the information. All right, so I'll just take a break for 5 minutes so that if in case I've got any question, I can try to answer that. Still, I don't see the chat. I'm sorry, Kasam.
Not sure though. I've enabled the chat for everyone. Not sure why it's in this way.
Or am I seeing in the wrong window? Or I'm in a different pane or what? Whatever I do, I don't see
I think he joined as a guest, whereas all others are not guests.
Probably.
But I've enabled for everyone. It should not be an issue.
Okay, no problem. Can you just read out the question for me? I'm sorry.
Acha, will do. I don't think so there are any question as of now. But guys, if you have any question, you can just unmute yourself and present it directly. That would be much better.
All right, looks like no questions. That's good. Let's try to quickly move on to the next few things which I want to show you. Apart from this workbook where you can put all your records and do the visualizations part and good. So now what happens if in case you want to run the script from the DevOps pipeline? Because you can't run it from your context every time with your authentication where you need to what do you call it as schedule the script, right? Where you get that whatever the record. See, I'm just showing only on the resources table. There are a lot of other tables associated to this. One other good table I can show you is about the resource change thing, which is pretty interesting for me. Probably you can find that interesting too. Resource changes, I'll say limit 5, limit 3, something like that. So this resource changes table will contain all the information about the manipulation of the resources, whatever been taken on that particular resources. Say, for example, I've got something like websites of the target resource type. I've got a change attribute. What is a change attribute? It shows like something has been done. This is the news source snapshot. Probably I would have done a deployment. The previous deployment it will capture, right? So I have a pipeline deploying the web application or a function app, whatever it is. When I do the redeployment one more time, I get a new set of source code. Probably it is not a new set of source code, but still the new deployment happens. So it will have a snapshot of the previous. So that will help me out to go back to the previous version from the UI. So this is going to be pretty helpful for us to understand when it got changed. What exactly it is. When you want to understand that, you can capture that kind of information. Is there anything more useful? This kind of records you can just plot. What I advise is you can just go explore all these table and you can plot some beautiful reports and you can put it across to the community. Everybody can make use of it. So let's see what we have got it in the health resource of take 5 and run a query. So this is going to give me the availability statuses of the resources. So what is the availability statuses? You can put some good report around it that helps you to understand what is your resource name is. Do I have a resource name here? It will give only the availability statuses. So let me show you how to work on a couple of things in this, so you can get only the data which will be in a readable format. So this is pretty helpful table for us. I'll just do project ID, comma, name, comma, resource group, comma, subscription ID. I don't know what is available in this table. I'm just trying it by myself. I don't want the formatted result. I got the resource group name. I got the subscription name, but the health resources says I need to have a resource name. I don't see the resource name anywhere, right? Or do I see it? So // is nothing but a comment here in resource graph query. Let me quickly go ahead and pull out this information and see, is there a resource name anywhere? No. But I have a resource ID. But this is too lengthy. I can't export it to the CSV. My boss don't need that information. All he wants to know is what is the resource type, resource name is. So the resource name resides in the in this particular one. So if I come to this, I have a target resource ID, which is the short form of that. Okay, that's good. Now I do know where I get the data from. So quickly go here, do this, and put a column called, this is a friendly name I'm giving it for my data which I'm going to extract, the resource name. You can't give the name which already exists in the column. Okay, make sure of that. Let me just do a new line so that it will be in a readable format. I just do a resource name. Okay, before that I'll show you one more thing. You can also do a formatting of this indentation. So that will be very helpful for you to read the code, because you may get up 3-4 in the morning to troubleshoot and fix something in the workbook. So in that case, if you read the code clumsy, it won't be good. So you can just do select all and then right click format command under the cursor, or just click on format document. It's going to do the formatting for you. So now I just do a resource name equals to string of properties dot I come back here, properties dot target resource ID dot target resource ID. Okay, when I run it, I get the resource name, which is again a bit of lengthy, right? But I need only the last index string AZDZ01, that my Azure domain controller, right? So how do I do that is, I just go take it like this to string of split properties dot is let me see what happened. Now I got an error. Let me do this again. Split my sources good. So what I did here is I'm just splitting the target resource ID, which has got the /. It will be, the resource ID will be like a / subscription, / subscription ID, / whatever, provider, resource type, and then the name comes. The name appears in the last in the resource ID. So I'm pulling out this and taking the -1, which is the last index of the array. Now I got the resource name, which is nothing but my VM name. So if I choose this Windows Lab and go here and choose the Windows Lab, I should see the resource name actually. It has got the virtual machine as a Windows Lab. See, this is also running on a resource graph API underneath it, which pulls out anything which has with the name Windows Lab. This is one of the good example. I'll show you that as well here. If I have a resources where name has or starts with Windows Lab, and then I can run a query. I pull out all the information where the name which will start with Windows Lab. Right. So now you may come to you may ask a question. How about the case sensitivity here? So starts with has got that option for you. Starts with _CS is a case sensitive. So if I say like case sensitive and I choose like Windows and uppercase W and run a query, I don't get any data because I don't have some kind of such kind of a data, right? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. So just run a query. So I don't have such kind of a record. But if I do like this, run a query, I have it. How many records we have got? We have got only 6 records, right? So now I quickly go to my homepage, resource group. I create a resource group, which I call as Windows Lab Dear Azure. So nobody would have picked up. Okay, you can't create like that. Okay, I make it as Win Lab Dear Azure in East US, whatever it is. I just click on review create. So now I created a resource group. Okay, I created a resource group. Actually, it should be a resources. That's okay. The example is simple. If I have anything with the case sensitive, you have to use this to make sure it is matching your cases. Okay, simple as that. Now, I just want to show you one more thing. I have a resources. I can get only the name. Okay, I don't want I. Okay, I'll do ID. Subscription ID, resource group. When I run this, it's all good. But most of the report which contains a subscription ID, you may get a reverse encounter saying that what is the use of keeping the resource subscription ID? Why don't you give me the subscription name so that it will be friendly enough for us to understand? Because your company may have a standard naming convention, right? Which says like dev, QA, PRD in the suffix or prefix, or you may have a business line name in between called like, be it like IoT, event driven automation, something like that, or you run e-commerce platform, something like that. You may have that naming convention. So how do I get the subscription name? You can't get it directly from the resources. It's not going to give you that, but you can go ahead and give a join here. So you can have a join kind equal to, you can have a inner, you can have a outer, you can have a left outer, you can have a right outer. Whatever the joins you are looking out for, you can do that. So you can have a inner join and then say resource containers. The resource containers is another table which you see here, which will have only subscriptions and resource groups. Nowhere you will see resource groups in a different table. If you want to pull out the resource groups and resource group information, you have to pull out the resource containers. Okay, right? I'll run the query here. You will get only the subscription and the resource group information in this. Right? I can also quickly go ahead and say like where type equals, what I'll call it as Microsoft.resources/subscriptions/resource group. Let me copy that. It has got management group also. I'm sorry about it. Not only subscription and resource group, it will also pull out the management group name. So now I've got all the subscription resource group names. I've got 18 resource groups name now because I've created one new resource group. Earlier it was 17, right? It is 18 now. So you can also have a join with the resource containers and have a join on these subscription ID. So resources, I'll just say join kind equals inner, and here I just say resource containers. So I need to give on subscription ID. So both should have one common parameter. The resource containers has the subscription ID and resources will also have a subscription ID, right? Resource containers where type, and then I just do a tilde sign equals and a tilde sign. And I don't want to mess up with anything. I'll just copy it from here. Right. I'm good. Microsoft.resources/subscriptions on subscription ID. Let me run without projecting something. Let's see what I get. Let me click on system detail. Do we see a subscription name somewhere? We should be getting it. It's okay. What should I do? Should I do here is I should say project ID comma resource group comma subscription ID comma name, and then here as well just go ahead and say project ID comma resource group comma subscription ID comma name, and then I run a query. You see here I get a duplicate values here which says resource group 1 subscription ID 1 because in the both the table I am projecting that subscription ID, name, and other stuff. That's okay. I want that info, but how do I avoid getting the duplicate? I can just go ahead and say project hyphen away ID 1 comma resource group 1 comma subscription ID 1 comma name 1, and I can run a query. So I get this data. So I can just do the clubbing up, and also I can choose the now comes as the name is this name. If I don't do a name 1, I see the subscription name here. So the name 1 here is nothing but a subscription name. In this case, what should I do is I just quickly go ahead and say subscription name equals to name. That's it. Now I just say project name and run this query. Okay, I will not get that. I should do this. Run a query. So now I get the information what I was looking out for. Name. So now if in case I've got any other subscription apart from Azure Cloud, I should get that information too. Right? Any other subscriptions. So the subscription ID changes, the subscription name changes. So this is how you can do that. And what I observed in this is like you can go ahead and have a multiple joins here, more than 3 or 4, but there is some limitations. You need to refer to the documentation. Apart from that, you run a join query in PowerShell script. There is a hard limit. You can't do more than 4 joins. Got it? You can't have more than 4 different table joins. Right. So you have to just make sure of it. So one other quick thing is when you're trying to do this kind of script resource queries, or sorry, queries, whatever you want to run, you can also save this query and you can run it a number of times when you're doing some kind of a troubleshooting or inventorying or reporting or whatever it is. When you're going to schedule this in something, you can also run this from the Azure DevOps pipeline, or you run that from the Azure Function app, just a script which is going to run. All you need to do is you need to create one SPN, and through the SPN, you just go ahead and build the pipeline. So what I do for that is I'll just go to the Azure Active Directory. I'm pretty sure that if you can export the data from the Azure Workbook by auto refreshing it any number of times, automation, sending out an email, putting it in the blob or other things, I don't think it's pretty useful, but auditing and other things, business lines may need it. So you can have the pipeline just to store the data, because if the data is deleted here in the Azure Resource Graph table, you can access it from the Data Explorer or wherever you dump the data. That's the only advantage I've seen. So you can go to the app registrations, new registration. I'll call this as Dear Azure, I automate. Just name this. I'm creating a service principal name now. I'm registering one application. So I just want to quickly show how to get this done through the SPN too. Okay, so what I do here in this script is, so if you see in this particular context, it is authenticated using my account. It's my individual account. You can see my email ID, right, as a user. Now what I do is I'll try to authenticate through the client ID. Just do client ID equals, and I'll have a client secret, and I'll have a tenant ID. I run a command called connect AZ account credential. So convert to, I want to convert this to a secure string as plain text force so that I can create one credential object. So I use PS credential for that. PS credential new. I give a client ID, comma client secret. That's it. And I need to copy the tenant ID from here. Good. Credential is a credential and to service principal. That's a switch parameter. I'm just telling to my commandlet, I'm trying to authenticate through a service principal instead of my account. And this is my tenant ID. All good. Now I've got all the information. I need to create a client secret. I go to create a client secret. I'll call it as Dear Azure. I automate. Keep it for 6 months. I created a client secret. I copy this client secret now. You save it anywhere. It's okay. I run this till line number 6. I selected it. Right click. Run selection. It says, hey, sorry, I don't know. It's not going to work. This authentication method is not good. It's accepted because I didn't grant a permission. I've just created the SPN. I go to my subscription again. Go to my IAM and add a role assignment. I choose a reader. Select members. Dear Azure, I automate. Click select, review and assign. Okay, take a couple of minutes to replicate once the access is being granted. That's good. Now let's see if this works. That works. Now I can see the data which says that hey, you got some authentication. I got a reader permission in this. So now I'll see the context again. Get -az context dot account. So now it says ID. That's my client ID, which you see here. And then service principal. It's not in my user account. Now that's good. I'm happy. I can go ahead and schedule this. For that, I don't need to have a dedicated VM or I don't need to have a dedicated function app instance or something. If you have Azure DevOps, that's more than enough. I'm creating one demo project, something like this, Dear Azure reporting. You can create this as public or private, whatever it is. I'm creating as private because it's for my organization. I'm creating it as a private Azure reporting repository. Why I want to do that is just I can go ahead and help you out how to schedule this. So just go click on project settings and I choose service connections, create a service connection. I want to select Azure Resource Manager because in the beginning of the session, I said anything we do, it's on ARM based. We are not using Azure Classic. Anything you want to do on Azure Data Explorer, you can directly do it. But don't get confused. Why, when I have dumped my data on Data Explorer, why can't I do that? Here, you're going to have a pipeline that dumps data to the Data Explorer, something like that you can think about. So I'm just choosing Azure Resource Manager. Next, I choose Service Principal Manual. Automatic may go good when you are in single sign-on thing, but I have a different directory altogether. I can click on Next. My subscription ID. Go to my Azure overview. I copy the subscription ID. Keep this in the third tab so that I can keep the subscription ID. And this is my subscription name. What is my service principal ID? That's my client ID. I copy this. And what's my service principal key? This is my service principal key. You can also generate a certificate and you can use the certificate here. There's nothing wrong in it. When you use a certificate, you just want to convert the PFX to the PEM and get the ID. Use that ID here. That's the only difference. Now I need to give the tenant ID, Copy the tenant ID. Click on verify. The verification is succeeded. If I remove the reader permission there, I'll get a verification fail. You will get a JSON web token failure. The service connection name, I'll name it as Dear Azure, I automate. And yeah, grant access permission. I click on verify and save. Now that I've got the service connection enabled. Now I go to the repository. I initialize a new repo. I clone this repository. I'll just quickly go and say git clone, get the Dear Azure reporting. 1 second. Now that I've got the repo, I've got Dear Azure reporting. I'll open this code. I'll write one script for report.ps1. I can reuse that code, whatever I have here. The only thing is I don't need to have this authentication. I get rid of it. So when I'm going to run this, it will automatically get the context of the service principal. How it is going to happen, I'll show you. Terminal. Let me keep this as it is. I'll create one Azure-pipeline.yaml. All right, I'm good. I've got some extension installed for my VS Code. So in the right top corner, the right bottom corner, you see YAML, right? I need to just click on this and switch to Azure pipelines. Okay. Now IntelliSense will work. I just say trigger branches include. I have only one branch. If you don't need, if you don't know about this YAML file, don't worry. If time permits, I can get one more session on setting up CI/CD pipeline for automation. That is a different branch altogether. I'm quickly writing up one ugly YAML file so that I can show you how to automate it. There is always a better way for anything we do. So I'm just using a VM image. I'm calling as Windows latest. And now comes the steps, stages, stage, everything is auto IntelliSense. I'm not typing anything. Jobs, job. Under this, I go for steps, task. So I'm running Azure Powershell. So now I just do control space. Whenever I do control space, it gives me the pop-up. I can choose what API I can select. I'm choosing the latest one, Azure PowerShell at 5, which is a PowerShell core type. So when I enable this, what happens is it will trigger whenever there is a change happened on any of the branch. It won't look in which branch I'm in. I'm in main branch. In the left bottom corner, you can see I'm in a main branch. If I have a dev branch also, it will just go ahead and call the pipeline. I'm demanding a Windows latest, that is a Windows 2022 version. By now, Microsoft is using Windows 2019, but that's what I'm saying, that get the latest Windows image. And I'll have a multiple stages. I can have a multiple stage, or I can directly call the script. In this case, I'm having the stages because I want to run a script and then I'll leave it to you. You can take it up on next stage and then deploy it to the blob, or you can copy it to the blob or put it to the ADX. So now in the task of this, I just go ahead and say, take an input, Azure subscription. So how does, whenever I get a context, a new a container to run or a computer to run my script, it should know there is a SPN associated to it, right? I showed you how to create this SPN and I showed you how to create a service connection. So you can just go to the service connection of the project and pick the name of it. So I just say Dear Azure Automate. This is more than enough. System knows I need to get authenticated through the SPN, which is running here, to authorize it. So now I just go ahead and say script type, file path, and I say script path, like call this as a relative path and spread over here. So I've got the script path in the same where I'm running. So it's all good. Let's see how this works. So I'm just going to say git add git commit initial commit git push use origin main. So I'm just pushing this change to the main branch directly. If I have a development branch and other things, I can do that, but that is a branching strategy, branching policy, setting up CI/CD. I can take it in a different session, not now though. It's too lengthy and too complex to understand or to make it in one single session. Now that I've pushed the data, the code, if I come to my repository, I should see the files here. So it was an empty repository. Now I see all 3 files. That's good. So now I go and set up a build pipeline. It's a multi-stage pipeline. I'm just doing it in simple way for a demo. Now I have this. Let's see if I run what happens. It will first prompt to authorize the SPN, which I can use. Now what happens when the job started? It will quickly go ahead and show you how it is preparing the mission. It will, when I say that I need to have Azure PowerShell 5, it knows that it is a cross-platform. It should have an AZ module installed. I am not giving any instruction to the computer that I want AZ module, I need AZ CLI, I'm running on REST API. I just said take this task. This task just goes and tell to the backend that get him AZ module installed. So that's how it works. Okay, it failed. The version specifier is not in the correct format. What is the version I want to mention? Azure PowerShell version. Okay, this is not mentioned. That's good. I'm taking the latest version. Now what I do is I just do the same. Git add, git commit using latest version of AZ module. And then I just do git push -u origin main. Now what happens? The code will push automatically. The pipeline will start running. You can see it's queued. The earlier run was failed, right? The earlier run failed and now it is queued. You can see the icon, it's queued. Let's see how this works. This time it should do something. So you get all the agent information here. This is running on a Microsoft hosted agent, not a self-hosted agent. So it gets the information here. You can get the system information here. Virtual environment, you see some details about the folders, agent tools directory, where what exists, what is the mission name, all this data. All right, now you can see this is establishing the connection and got the report. Right, it went establish the connection more secure way. It took the tenant. How does it know? Because I gave the service connection name here. Right, simple as that. So there is a lot of tasks which you can do by adding it more, like export the file and then put it on the blob. There is some APIs for that too, which you can see, like Azure blob, or what is called a storage blob. Q blob, sorry. Something like that. I forgot the name, but you can just choose that and that will help you out to copy the files to the storage account blob. You just give the name of the blob information and stuff. You can do that. So there are a lot of other options. Along with that, you can do to the data explorer. I think I've got one utility for the data explorer, which is available in the PowerShell gallery. You can use that to ingest data. I will add this also. ADX or PSADX. PSADX is another one. Yeah, you can use this module done by me, which is PowerShell Azure Data Explorer. You retrieve the data and using this commandlet, you can directly run and deploy it to the, ingest the data to the cluster, Azure Data Cluster, Data Explorer. So in this case, which is a WebUI free one, you see the ingest new data. I click here. Similarly in Azure also you do that. You click here, you go and choose the database, and then you say like create a new table for demo, and then say what is your source. You select the source from here, right? So this PowerShell module will help you out to take care of this. It will directly go ahead and allow you to ingest it. Or you can also send it to a blob. From the blob also you can try to get the data to your thing. So every time you upload the blob, you get the new data here. Either way, you can make use of it. So this is what exactly I want to show you regarding the resource graph query and reporting. If you are interested to know more on CI/CD pipeline and making the end-to-end automation, probably we can look for some other session in the future. So thanks a lot, guys, for being with us on Saturday. It's really wonderful talking to you all and presenting. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Yeah. So actually, like whatever the data, current data we are seeing in Azure resources using Graph Explorer and all, it's clear. But is it possible to get a graph like yesterday how many resources are there, today how many, like some kind of a line graph like yesterday 50 and today 20 and tomorrow it will be, I mean, something like that.
Very good question, Pawan. But what happens is Microsoft doesn't give you when the resources are created for all the resource type. Only for the selected resource type, Microsoft has started giving the created timestamp of the resource.
Correct.
Right. So, okay, let me show you one thing. If I come to my Azure Blade and open up any one of the storage account, you see the created timestamp here.
Yes.
It won't be available for all the resources because Microsoft just rolled out this. This is like, I can say this argument or debate is happening from the on-premises timestamp because days, I mean to say, when you host some physical machine on the rack, people want to know when that machine is being up and running. But when you go to the operating system and pull out the data, like when it is got installed, manufacturer would have done something and probed it, tested it, and given it to you with the OS, right? So you will be considering that as the install date. But after a month only, you will put it on the mount rack. And but what happens is when you pull the inventory, data center will be saying that this machine is created last month. But ideally, OS is installed last month, but machine on the rack was installed just a day before. Right, so that confusion will happen. So Microsoft has started rolling out this kind of information, like created timestamp now. So you can pull this information and you can plot it, but you need to make sure that resource supports this. Since you asked, I'll just quickly give a try here whether I can pull that information for storage account. Let me go to the home.
Sorry, let me be clear. Actually, it's not like I'm not looking for created information. I want to know the total number of VMs. So assume that day before yesterday it was 30 VMs and today, like maybe in a scale set, how the scaling is happened. Of course, in scale set it will show you, but I want to know total number of VMs in the resource group, like maybe historic.
Yes, you can do that, but you without having that created timestamp, you cannot put the historical data, even a line graph or whatever it is. The time series needs the time, no?
Correct, but if the resource is deleted, we cannot fetch the timestamp, right?
That's what I said. If you don't have, if you want such kind of a data, you put to the blob. From the blob, you take it to the Explorer and you can play around there. So you can have analytical data. Somehow you have to ingest to a system for your customization when the data has been created. So for one of the client, what we have done is whenever the resource is getting created, we capture the event and then we get the meta of that and dump it to the data explorer. So even for next 1 year, he will have the data. He can go anytime and pull out the information and see what happened in the last month, how many resources been created and what is in the current. If you delete the data also, the data explorer, it appears.
Okay.
So with that, you can do the analytical data. Here you can have a near real-time data. Yes, of course, if you have a created timestamp, you can play with that. I don't say no, it is not possible. But if you spend some more time with the created timestamp, you can play with that. You can definitely do that. How many storage account created yesterday and today? What is the count for yesterday? What is the count for today? Similarly for the VM, similarly for the disk, for the NIC and similar resources.
Okay, got it.
The column should be created time. With that only you can say what happened yesterday.
Yes.
Or else when you are importing the data, ingesting the data to the Explorer, sorry, that point of time you have to put a timestamp. Or else you have to go for the event-driven solution. when the thing is created, you have to capture the data and dump it somewhere.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Technically, it is possible. You can query it using the creator timestamp for the storage account. If that solves your purpose, you can choose a different graph and then you can do that. All right. Looks like no other question. Okay. Fine. Thanks everyone. I'll ask Kasam to send all